Blaine, you brought a friend. What are we doing?
Hello, Jonathan.
Hey, Blaine.
This is Jonathan.
Hey, guys. Nice to meet
I
you.
gotta look at that camera. All right, Jonathan, we're bringing you on. What are we doing today?
In short, we're going to talk about how awesome The Hobbit is and how the movies suck. You guys have seen the movies.
Yes.
Have you read the book?
Yes.
The Hobbit's the only Lord of the Rings book that I have read.
Yeah,
We can cure that. And okay, cool. So did you watch the movies with the book? Or sorry, did you watch the movies with the book in mind?
I read the book after.
Okay, what did you think initially? Just like watching the movie and then reading the book.
Movie's a bit bloated.
A little bit.
It's an understatement.
That's a nice way to say it, but yeah.
Okay, well, let's get into the original Hobbit and just Tolkien and start talking about the creation of or what it was supposed to be.
So believe it or not, the Hobbit story was created.
I have a cut on my lip.
Ooh.
Bourbon.
So bourbon was good, but ow.
Yeah. This is apple juice.
In my wine glass, yeah.
So The Hobbit started as a bedtime story, of all things, that Tolkien told to his children. And he didn't start writing it down in any form of like keeping a record of what was going on until I believe it was, I don't know all his children's names, but the one who carried on his legacy after J.R.R. passed away, Christopher. I believe it was Christopher, started like asking him questions like, well, Dad, last night you said Bilbo had a green jacket, and tonight you're saying it's blue. So he realized for continuity, he actually had to write down everything, and that's where the story of The Hobbit grew from. And then he just, and it's funny too because J.R.R. Tolkien was technically not a man of his time because all of the literary scholars of his day like just crapped on his work. They're like, you didn't do this right, you didn't do that. And he was like, I don't care, I'm gonna do it anyway. And now it's, in my opinion, one of the most awesome books ever written. Not saying much because I haven't read a lot, but I've read like Iliad. I've read Iliad and the Odyssey.
And they're the only books
I know,
I've read.
the only ones worth reading. I would know. But like, I've read Iliad and Odyssey, Beowulf. Actually, a lot of early English folklore, like Beowulf, played a role in Tolkien's eventual overall format.
I was going to say, I could kind of see when we were talking about the songs, I could almost see how it was similar to the way the poems and the songs are written is kind of similar to Dante's Inferno, which is an epic poem. So it kind of has that flow. And also like the Canterbury Tales is kind of similar because it's also like a poem thing.
Yeah, I forgot I read that one. But yeah,
I see a connection there, like you're talking about.
It's really cool. And I'm trying to remember all the fine details because it's just such a vast life. Because I know you guys did the Lord of the Rings podcast, and The Hobbit was the first. Everything stemmed from The Hobbit, which is why the book, emphasis on the book, is so fantastic.
Right. It's independent. It's its own story.
It's its own story. And what happened after Tolkien wrote it down, people, I don't remember the exact lineage of how it became a book, but people were like, oh, you should publish this. He did. It was awesome. And then people started going, so when are you going to write a sequel? And he's like, I hadn't planned on it.
Ugh.
Right? He's like, you mean I did all of that work and now I have to do more? But somewhere in the interim between story for children at bedtime and Lord of the Rings, he then created the whole Middle-earth lore and universe. And it's deep. Like he then wrote the Silmarillion, or I forget exactly where the Silmarillion I think came before Lord of the Rings, but didn't become, it still to this day isn't all that popular in comparison because it is a very hard read. I have yet to read the Silmarillion. So what I did was I did listen to The Hobbit while I worked. So I think it took me, how long did it take you to read it? Because you read it, right?
I did. I did it in 3 days, but
I think I did about the same, three and a half.
Yeah.
I did it in 2.
Wow. You're cool.
You clearly
No,
missed
I
some
just read
stuff.
The Hobbit. Like a day for each word.
So I listened to the book, and then I immediately watched each movie, which was painful.
Extended edition?
No, unfortunately, my dad does not own the extended edition. But with as bloated as the regular
They
movies
have
are,
those?
they do.
Oh yeah.
Really?
They
Never
do.
touched them.
Christmas is coming.
I wouldn't. That is. Please don't.
Well,
Please
you've
don't.
been banned.
you put it
This
next
is
to the
your
lump of coal. Yeah.
Yeah, that I take Cole over the extended edition Hobbit. I really would. So I begin the movie, and I do want to caveat with I am not completely illiterate to what it takes to make a film. If you watch the Lord of the Rings movies extended edition from the books, they changed a lot. And a lot of I'd consider myself a true Tolkien fan. I don't know if I'm diehard enough to equate myself with the people that get ticked off at the Lord of the Rings movies, because there are people that
I've seen-
hate the movies
Really? Hate? I know
because
some
they're
people
so
have like
diehard
nitpick
Tolkienites.
issues. They're like, this is different, but man, whatever.
That's me,
Yeah.
and it's because it's like I know they had to. Like
Right.
it's understandable.
But he's the majority, though.
Oh, well, yeah, I
Yeah,
got you.
yeah,
I
yeah,
got
yeah.
you.
Like
And
it's a
I-
very small.
Okay.
I just want to
I
say,
wasn't even aware of them.
no.
Yeah, some people do get mad at the changes.
Here's
'Cause
the
there
beauty
are.
of the movie, though. No profanity. And there's none in the book, but like they didn't add any for cinema. No profanity, no sex scenes. 17 Oscars in 1 year. It was beautiful. Lord of the Rings was actually won Oscars before the extended edition was finished because Peter Jackson was still cutting bits of film to put into the DVD. So that's just a fun point. So I want to caveat this with I know that is necessary. However, the prologue, the whole entire prologue to the Hobbit movie, The Unexpected Journey. Also, why 3 movies for 1 book? Just that. Okay, that goes without saying. But the prologue,
Cha-ching.
It's
Yeah.
also the smallest of his books.
yeah.
So
There is
what?
a 1977 cartoon of The Hobbit. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's the one where they scan the people. They did the rotoscoping
Different
or
one.
whatever. Oh, it's a different, one. Okay.
So
yes,
the-
there is one of those.
Okay.
Ralph Bakshi did the Lord of the Rings, and he didn't finish that. He only did like Fellowship, right?
Now you're getting to territory I do not know.
Okay.
On the film
Okay.
side.
Ralph
Yeah.
Bakshi, I'd say infamous filmmaker. He's the Fritz Cat guy.
No
he
profanity or
started-
sex in that.
Well, I know, odd choice for him to do Lord of the Rings, but he did like half of it.
What a
Did he
switch.
also do The Hobbit? Because there is an animated The Hobbit as well from the 70s.
1977. I don't know filmmakers
might
and all
be
that
too-
kind of
okay.
stuff.
I digress.
Usually, I mean, I know Peter Jackson. I know some big names, but the historical stuff I'm
Well, that's
not
what makes The
well-versed
Hobbit
in.
so agonizing is that Peter Jackson proved he could do it. 10 years ago
And
with
then he-
Lord of the Rings.
And then he destroyed
And then he
it.
just forgot.
He forgot
he
what made it
was.
amazing.
Well, I do wonder. I mean, was there studio interference?
I
with
was
all
going to
that?
say, how much was the studio involved in ripping it apart?
Considering what Jackson did with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I feel like they just would have been like, do whatever.
You would
And then
think.
he was like,
I don't.
really?
Company.
Okay.
well, here's the other thing that
Marvel has
happened.
that problem.
Here's the other thing that happened with Lord of the Rings to The Hobbit too. Lord of the Rings, the fact that it got made is a miracle.
I think that's a crazier story.
It
Have
was
you heard
m-
his sell? It's
Yeah.
bonkers.
Well, it
I don't
was
know how
meant to
somebody
be-
went, yeah, we'll buy that.
Well, he pitched it as he pitched the idea to the studio, and then his question to the studio was, now all you have to ask yourself is why you would want to do this in 2 films.
Mm-hmm.
To which the response was, well, this is clearly 3 films. And he's like, I look forward to doing business with you. And the studio actually switched. It wasn't originally New Line Cinema. I forget who it was, but they came in and actually saved the movie.
Well, because what he did was he was like, we can shoot 3 movies for the price of 1. He shot bits of all 3.
And he
then
did them
went-
all at the same time.
And then he shot like, he shot bits of all 3.
Yeah.
And then he went back and went, now you got to pay for the rest of the movies.
That's right.
So they've got this project just sitting there. So I think that's when New Line swooped in. The original studio was just like, we're
Yeah.
out. And then New Line came in and was like, all right, well, Freddy Krueger gave us this blood money. We'll give it to this guy.
Well, and it was crazy because, to my knowledge, no other film has been, including The Hobbit, has been filmed before the first one even released. They were all filmed, which is why they don't have the money grab aspect film to film to film,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not trying to do fan service or studio service. And I think you're right. I think because the world wasn't expecting The Lord of the Rings to be as successful as it was, the studio was like, we don't care, just do it.
Oh yeah.
Then they saw how amazing it was, and fast forward 20 years, and
We want the same thing, please.
except our way
Yeah,
and
exactly.
crappier.
do you guys remember? So they have Frodo in the movie with that whole intro scene,
Yeah.
and he's like writing the book and everything. Like that first 20 minutes, I think, it's not in the book.
That immediately
It's
hit
like
me.
20 minutes.
When did this movie come? When did that come out? 2012, 2014. Okay.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think the last one was 2014.
Yeah. So
Okay,
over
2012
2012 to
-ish.
2014.
Okay. So
One a
I
year.
would have been 12, and as a 12-year-old, I went, "What is this corporate bullshit?"
I will say
It's just, oh my God.
they could have done it better. I'm not ticked off that they did it, but they didn't do it.
I was straight up.
but-
I'm
but
still
the-
ticked off that they did it.
but the
I think
issue
he doesn't.
is-
Frodo doesn't belong in the film because he doesn't. I mean, Chekhov's gun. If you introduce Frodo, he needs to have a part in the story, which he does not.
Well,
Hobbit.
I mentioned this before we started recording. The Hobbit was never meant to be a prequel to The Lord of the Rings. The
Right.
Lord of the Rings was a sequel. The problem, and I have detailed notes in here about it, but the overall problem with the Lord of the Rings film or the Hobbit film is it pays too much fan service to set up Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
As an audience, and it's so hard to do, and I get that, but it can be done. As an audience, we're not supposed to know the Lord of the Rings is coming.
Right. And that's the thing I was going to say. It's they over-explain everything and disrespect the audience with just making us like,
Exactly.
we know what's going on. Like,
Exactly.
you don't need to over-explain it, or at least hint so we'll catch on.
It treats you like a child.
Right. And that's that whole first 20 minutes that's all it is. Like,
Well, in the prologue, they
you.
completely changed not completely changed, but they overemphasized the backstory of the Lonely Mountain with Smaug the dragon and Thorin's backstory. Azog should never be in it. Holy crap,
Yeah,
that's a flaming pile of horse dung. I will say one thing, and I tried very hard, very, very hard to find good things about the movie that they did. There are some. Because of the movie being what it is, you have to shorten things down. I thought the dwarves coming to Hobbiton, to Bilbo's home, was actually done very well. And I do appreciate the interaction between Gandalf and Bilbo.
They sang the song.
They sang the song was
Yeah.
the
It's
song was
that's
fantastic.
awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah, so that whole scene from them being at the home is all right. Bilbo joins the company a little bit differently.
That's literally the only scene I remember is the dwarves coming into the house and them all singing a song and having dinner.
Dude, I'm pretty
That-
sure I've tried to start this movie multiple times, and that's about as far as I get.
Yeah.
Like, because once that scene's done, you're just.
Well, because then I fall asleep from that point up until where he reaches Smaug and he's talking with Smaug, and then I fall asleep again.
Well, that's really impressive considering those are two different
That's
movies.
The second movie, bro.
Now, have you heard?
First movie ends with his eye opening.
It's like, ooh, I'm
Okay,
Benedict.
sure.
Just like, why?
I'll take your word for it.
Ooh, it's me, Benedict Cumberbatch.
But the CGI of everything is, especially with the goblins, they make the goblins too much comic relief in the film.
Well, that's the same thing with the orcs they do in that. I mean, not
In-
orcs,
in
in,
the
the
Hobbit?
CGI. In the Hobbit, yeah. And like all the CGI and stuff.
Yeah, but they're
on
not
them.
comic relief.
Oh, yeah.
And the orcs in the films are all practical.
In
The
the
Lord of
Hobbit?
the Rings.
In Lord of the Rings.
well, in Lord of the Rings, yeah.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
in the Hobbit, they're
I'm
all,
talking about the Hobbit.
Oh gosh, it's
Yeah.
way too much.
Yeah,
Way too much
exactly.
CGI. I mean, a lot of it's nitpicky stuff. My real just hate for the films comes when they start playing with very key factors. So when Bilbo finds the ring in the book, that's exactly what happens. He finds the ring.
Mhm.
In the movie, he witnesses Gollum drop the ring and then goes in. It's like, oh, look at this! I found a ring. It's like, no, you didn't, dummy. You saw him drop it, and then you walked up and that gets my goad. I hate. It's like you don't need to maybe that's how it happened.
Well, you know, we paid
the
Andy
book.
Serkis, so Andy Serkis is gonna do Gollum.
Well, he can do Gollum, and he does it beautifully.
He's gonna drop the ring.
And he does in the book, but you don't. Frodo doesn't, or Bilbo doesn't see it. Right. That's my problem. Is Bilbo witnesses the ring fall out of Gollum's lack of pocket? Does he even have pockets in that loincloth? That's a questionable thing.
I have no clue.
I mean, you can frisk him if you
But
want. I'm
even
not
that,
going
it
to.
doesn't
I'm
make
good.
sense
No, I'm good.
because Gollum still shows up because Bilbo has to do a riddle with him.
Well, the riddles in the dark. That is honestly one of the only things the first movie got really,
Yeah.
really
I was
well.
gonna say they did that well.
They did nail that.
Yeah, and that was I was looking it up. That was Martin. That was the first scene Martin Freeman shot as Bilbo. So they
Oh.
retook that scene 4 or 5 different times from different angles, instead of having multiple cameras on one shot and like doing bits and pieces, they filmed the entire thing multiple times because, and even then, Martin Freeman wanted to ask to redo some of the dialogue in ADR because he couldn't. He's like, I was still finding that character. I couldn't quite get it. So I thought that was an odd choice for one of the most pivotal parts, with the idea that Hobbit is not a prequel to Lord of the Rings. With the introduction of the ring and that buildup of the characters, I thought that was a really odd choice for Jackson to be like, hey, we're going to start with this one.
But back to the point, like the Hobbit, Lord of the Rings isn't here yet.
Right.
And that's what Tolkien does so well, is that he doesn't even know the Lord of the Rings is coming. But he sets up like a silver platter and sets everything up so perfectly, so subtly.
The whole reason The Hobbit takes place is, and I'm actually kind of jumping ahead a little bit in my notes, but it'll serve the purpose of what we're doing here. In Dol Guldur, in the third movie, when they're going to see the necromancer, and they're all like, oh my God, it's Sauron. No dip. The whole reason that the Astari, which is the fancy name for Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast, and the two blue wizards, the whole reason they were sent to Middle Earth from the Grey Havens, because they're Maya. They're the same spiritual being as Sauron, as the Balrogs, as some of the other creatures in Middle Earth. The whole reason that they got sent to Middle Earth was to prepare Middle Earth for the second coming of Sauron and get them ready. So when they find Sauron in Dol Guldur, and they're like, oh, who knew? You guys did. You knew this was coming. So that pisses me off in the movie. The other thing that pisses me off in the movie is Gandalf's whole purpose for getting the dwarves to go to the Lonely Mountain and reclaim Erebor was not because he cared about the dwarves. He wanted Smaug dead. Dragons were a creation or a perversion, kind of like how Saruman perverts Melkor, Morgoth, I'm going way back lore, perverts the elves into orcs. He also wanted an air force. He wanted something to combat the eagles, and he didn't have anything. So he tried to create the dragons. A few early attempt fails. Balrogs were supposed to be that. They didn't work out, and eventually he succeeded. So Morgoth, Melkor, he's, disposed of. Cool. And now there are actually dragons, Smaug. Gandalf, knowing Sauron is coming back at some point, is like, if Smaug is still alive when that happens, and Smaug is, what's the word I'm looking for? Requisitioned by Sauron to be a part, conscripted by Sauron, drafted to be a part of his agenda, we're effed.
Yeah.
Gandalf's whole reason for getting Thorin to get his company together to go to the mountain is to get rid of Smaug. That's its only purpose. And he knows Sauron's coming, which is why it pisses me off the whole Dol Guldur scene even happens in the movies.
I watched the movie. I finished the movie, the first one today with The Hobbit. And I didn't realize this, but they do hint at that point with Smaug being the main reason. Did you catch that when you watched it? So when they're sitting at the council and what's her name?
I'm sorry. The White Council in Rivendell with Galadriel, Elrond, Saruman, and
Yeah, so when Galadriel is talking to him in his mind, she goes, you're mainly worried about the dragon, right?
Oh, I missed that.
And he goes, yes, I am worried.
And you
Wayne,
want to know,
did you watch the extended edition?
I didn't.
in the movie, do you remember when Radagast and Gandalf wind up at that weird square spiral tomb thing?
He just came right in on those rabbits.
Oh my
Is that the second movie or the first movie?
I forgot about the damn rabbits.
Yeah. They're fast at rabbits.
I kind of
they
love
can outrun anyone.
Radagast.
He's just covered in poop.
Not that he belongs in the movie. But I wanted a Radagast.
He is on the same. He is on the same plane for my disappointment as Azog, the Defiler, because although Azog, and even Azog's mentioned in the book, he's not alive at the time of the Hobbit. It's like thousands of years removed, but I get for movie purposes you condense. But Radagast is mentioned in the book, but never appears. I'm less upset that Radagast appears. what he does once he appears is what irritates me. But like he's in it, and it's okay. And yes, he has a thing of rabbits, which that was
That's-
weird.
He's like Santa
Seeing
Claus,
that
but
point,
rabbits.
I just went, what is this? This is a different movie now.
It's completely different.
He has like the he's
But,
like he's
but
like
given the rest of the movie, I wanted more of that little movie.
he's got the power
That's
of
all
like
I'm
every
saying.
animal in the woods. He's like, you know who can pull me? The rabbits.
The rabbits.
Speaking of hobo, what the F was their decision to make Beorn look the way he does in the movie?
He's not even in the first movie, so I didn't get to it. So I didn't get to rewatch it.
Right. So he's supposed to be in the first movie.
Because-
He wasn't. That was one of my notes.
We got too much bloated
It's like,
crap.
where is Beorn? We added so much bull crap that we actually have to take out a key character from the book to put him somewhere else. So that was irritating. In the Hobbit movie, butchers the character because in the book, Gandalf knows who Beorn is. He knows what he's like. And he's like, we got to introduce the dwarves subtly to not irritate him. We're on his land. We're in his home. I don't want to irritate someone when he's not expecting company. For movie purposes, I get you have to condense that. But they make Beorn this ravenous, thoughtless, mindless killing machine bear that chases the dwarves into his own home. And then when they meet him the next morning, he's like this weird hobo looking dude.
We know what that is.
We do.
They just made him the Hulk.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Now that you say that, that makes sense.
He's Bruce Banner in the Hulk.
you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Why? Stop it. That
mean,
makes
it-
so much
that's a good
sense.
In the third movie, they just drop him out like they do in the Avengers, like where like he comes in and like an
You're
eagle.
right.
Yeah, and he just hulks in the air and he jumps in. It's like Thor Ragnarok.
And that's the last you see of him
Yeah.
in the movies.
Yeah.
In the book, he's a pivotal role in like
All the way through,
Go
they keep
back
moving
to
him.
Beorn's house on the return
Well,
journey.
at that point in time, the Hulk wasn't that pivotal in the MCU, so you can't really use him that much in The Hobbit either. So,
If you're going based off the Hulk, you're right.
No, that makes sense. I never put that together,
yeah, that's what I always thought. He's just the Hulk.
which he shouldn't be
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
because one of the lines Beorn says in human form is, "I hate dwarves." It's like, no, he doesn't. Like, whatever.
Bjorn Smash.
And
the Eagles. Shall we bounce? Start.
why-
Let's start focusing on big points here.
Now, would you
That's a good
like to
point.
know? The Eagles are just the helicarriers of the Lord of the Rings.
and that's the issue I have. The movie does such, and even in Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings does it less so.
Mm-hmm.
Even in Lord of the Rings, the Eagles are totally disrespected for what they are.
I've always wanted more characterization of the Eagles like they deserve.
They don't do anything.
Big Bird.
They have a. Do you know the name
But
of
their
the?
motivation is never established, leading to that giant plot hole. Why didn't the Eagles fly them to Mount Doom? Because people don't understand what the Eagles are.
Yeah.
Which is why that's even a thing. Which, if you understood what the Eagles are, you wouldn't be asking that stupid question.
Do you know the name of the Eagle King guy? Gwaihir.
Okay.
Gwaihir. It's a really cool name.
That's a cool name.
But no. So Gwaihir, they are. They're kind of like this being, and the fact that they even get involved in the Battle of the Five Armies, and they do help when they do in Lord of the Rings. They are in the book, rescuing Gandalf and all that. They do it out of the generosity of their own heart. The movies portray them as beasts of burden to be ordered around, or helicarriers.
Just Big Bird.
Just,
Just a big bird.
just a big bird. It's a beautiful big bird.
Back to the point of what they actually, the relationship is like friendship with Gandalf. Out of the kindness of their hearts for Gandalf and who he is. That's why they help him in The Hobbit. And I'm assuming that's why they help him in The Lord of the Rings as well.
So what you're saying is Gandalf should have just made a plea for them to take him all the way to
Maybe.
Doesn't he do that in the book? Because I feel
well,
like
he was on a date with Galadriel.
I thought I remembered
Yeah.
a scene. I thought I remembered a sequence in the book where Gandalf is either talking to the Eagles or came back and is telling Bilbo that he just talked to the Eagles.
You are correct.
Yeah.
There's a line that he says, "They will take us to such and such a place because that is as far as they're willing to take us."
Right, but he explains.
And he says,
their
"I wish
kind
they
of-
could take us further, but you don't ask favors of the Eagles or something
right,
like
and he
that."
explains like what the Eagles do and like with their purpose within the world, and it is very. You're like, okay, so they're their own little civilization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like kind of like the elves. They've got their politics going
Right,
on.
they're
and
clearly a higher being.
well, yeah, but they're still not like untouchable gods that can just fly you directly into Mount Doom. Sauron would have just zapped him. However, he would with his crazy dark magic, but
Right.
they would have killed him.
Well, you even see the eagles, fighting like other flying things in the movies.
Mhm.
Like it's not they're just like
Yeah.
invincible. Like,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. They have.
it's better than
Like
what's his name's rabbit.
The
But
Witch King, the Witch King would have probably put up a fight with his dragon thingy.
Oh, Do you want to get into the Witch King? Do
Kind of.
you want to get into the Witch King?
I do want to get.
Are
into
you
the
ready
Witch
for
King.
this?
Okay.
Okay. I have no complaints about the Nazgul in the Witch King in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Okay.
There's some sequencing that happens that isn't well explained, but it doesn't do any disservice to what the characters are. In The Hobbit, when Radagast finds Dol Guldur, anytime I mention Dol Guldur, by the way, it's a problem for the Hobbit movies. When Radagast discovers Dol Guldur and says, "Oh, there's something there," blah blah blah, and they go and there's that ghost thing in the movie that tries to stab him with this thing, right? Morgul blade, very very heavy stuff. Yeah, that's not a thing because they're like, well, one, Radagast isn't in the book. Two, we don't know about Dol Guldur in the book, and three, they're like, the Witch King of Angmar has returned from the dead. Newsflash, people, he was never killed.
Yeah, I was gonna say immediately I had a problem with that because I'm like, wait, wasn't his purpose to like basically be B-tier Sauron while Sauron is dead?
So, no, but
But isn't he like running
Better-
things for Sauron while
yes.
Sauron's dead?
Sorry, that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. I
he's like
I
the
misheard you.
substitute teacher.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, okay, there
pretty
you go.
much.
Yeah.
So, the Nine were the men who received the 9 rings of power crafted with the aid of Sauron when he was in his fair form with the elves. And because they were taken by the greed of the rings, the power that the rings had over the spiritual realm, because crafted by Sauron, who's a Maya, who's from all that kind of fun stuff, it kept their being and their spirit intact, but they faded. That's why Aragorn in the movies and in the book describes them as they're neither living nor dead. They're technically not alive, but they never died because the power of the ring is keeping their ability. So they're, not to get too grotesque, but their flesh faded away. Everything faded away, and they're really just spirits. That's why they're invisible, because they're spirits, and they have to clothe themselves to be seen. So in the whole Hobbit movie, they're like, oh, they're back from the dead. That's why I brought up the spiral square, the weird square spiral tomb. Like, none of them ever died. Ever. And they bring Angmar into the film. Tauriel and Legolas go to the gates of Angmar in the third movie for some stupid reason.
I forgot about that whole plot.
Right?
Like, why are they in it?
Because it's not supposed to
Oh,
be.
it's so bad.
Actually, Tauriel shouldn't be in the movie. Legolas shouldn't be in the movie. And therefore, Angmar shouldn't be in the movie. And I love Legolas.
But
he
I
is my
liked them in the
favorite character.
previous trilogy, so I want to see them again.
Well, Legolas, sure. Tauriel, no. And go away.
Thank you.
No,
No.
please stay. Put those ideas about sleep. No, I actually had this. I had this talk. I thought I
want to trademark that. that might be.
And 3, go
It's
away.
like you could stay. No. After that, he said you can't stay, but your ideas must leave.
That's
so
a good t-shirt.
I-
Also, that's a good t-shirt.
kind of similar to what I said about Radagast earlier. Have him in, but don't have him do what he did. The fact that Legolas was in was actually kind of cool. Legolas is old as dirt.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been neat to see him, like when Thranduil, the Elven King, captures the dwarves. Which that whole capture sequence is out of proportion, but for a movie, I get it.
But they went in the barrels.
That's the escape.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. That whole escape scene was just over embellished. They in the books.
The fat one got stuck. It was funny.
That was funny. Bomber. Yeah, that was hilarious.
That's
or
well, it's
Bofur.
not written like an action set piece, but for a movie, you make it into an action
You
set
do.
piece. So
and you
that's
make it
what they
overly
did.
comical with Legolas jumping on the dwarf heads.
Right.
That was weird. But when they get captured in the movie, it would have been neat to see, like, in the council room where they're talking to the dwarves. It would have been kind of cool to see Legolas, like, by the throne as a cameo. Would have been cool. But
Yeah.
no, that's not what they did.
No, they had to do a whole plot
They did.
and a whole love.
And that
thing.
actually, the problem past the love story, the problem with Legolas playing the part that he does, one of the beautiful scenes in Lord of the Rings after they get out of the mines of Moria, and they're Gandalf just what they think dies, which he does actually. He comes back as Gandalf the White.
Iconic.
Right, super iconic. There are only, in Tolkien's work, in Tolkien literature, there are only 3 characters to ever kill a Balrog. All 3 of those characters die in the process. All 3 of them are returned to life. Fun fact. Gandalf being one of them.
You kill it and you get a green mushroom.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, just level up. Bloop, 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 bloop.
Yeah.
When they're showing Gandalf dies, they come out of the Moria, Mines of Moria, and Legolas, if you watch the movie, Orlando Bloom does a great job of this. He's looking around like just in disbelief. Like he's like, I mean, like, he's killed orcs up to this point in defense, but he's like, I lost someone.
Oh, are
Like,
you talking about the scene where Boromir dies?
no, I'm talking about the scene where Gandalf dies.
In
And
Lord
Boromir.
of the Rings.
Boromir does it too. He does it at Boromir's death scene too.
That's-
You're right.
Aragorn is mourning Boromir, and Legolas is just kind of like
Looking over his
I'm
shoulder.
not really sure what to do right now
Because he's an elf. They don't
They're
die.
not used to it. Right.
So the fact that Legolas is going through just massacring everything in sight in The Hobbit,
Mhm.
and people are on his side are dying too, just completely destroys that whole sentiment
right.
of him being an innocent elfling
Yeah.
who has no idea what battle's like. It's like, I was not happy with that. And the whole fact that Legolas can just defy gravity.
But he runs up with the falling bricks, and,
he
it's
looks
cool.
So that beautiful piece of work, the bigger one, is Orcrist. And that is, in the books, Thorin claims that as his sword when they find him in the troll cave. And true to the book, they get captured and the sword is taken away from him. Untrue to the book, they give the sword, somehow Legolas winds up with that sword for most of the film and starts whacking orcs.
Well, if
death
you add him
with
to
it.
the movie, you got to give him a weapon.
I
So,
guess so.
we can't just
So,
make up a new weapon for him.
Well, he eventually gets it, right?
in the book.
Yeah, in the books. Or no, he
No.
never does.
He never, because Legolas isn't in the books.
Well, I meant after the Hobbit.
No, no.
What is-
Orcrist never comes back into play in the Lord of
Okay.
the Rings. Glamdring, which is what you got here, that's
Yeah.
the sword that Gandalf claims when they find the swords. And yes, he has that through
The Lord of the Rings.
So the origin story for Glamdring is found in The Hobbit. Now, Sting that you got there, Will. Fun story about that. So that is to a man-sized person, just a dagger. You know, a toothpick, a letter opener. You know, no big deal. Because of his shorter stature, Bilbo gets it and claims it. And in the book, they actually go on like, well, what's my sword's name? And I think it's Balin in the book says swords are named after their great feats. This would have never seen action like that. So Bilbo's like, yeah, that's kind of disappointing. That sword, or dagger, but we'll call it a sword for all intents and purpose.
Sagger.
Yeah, the Sagger. That Sagger gets its name from Frodo when he fights the spiders, because the spiders refer to it as what is stinging us. What is that sting? And so that's why he names it. Now, the Lord of the Rings movie prop, which my brother also has, is the same sword, only it has, if you look on the hilt of this one and on the blade of that one, there is elven runes scripted into the blade. If you look on Sting, it doesn't have it. However, the Lord of the Rings version does have script from the handguard up into that swirly cue on the blade.
That stuff up there.
Yep, because in one of his travels back to Rivendell, Bilbo actually gets the sword inscribed. And so, moving on to a further contention of mine, they finally enter Lake Town in the film, and everything's wrong. You said you only got through.
I only got through the
Unexpected
first.
Journey?
Yeah.
Oh boy! But you read the books.
Yes.
Okay, so in the books, brief, quick recap. They get to Lake Town. They are welcomed into Lake Town. Thorin is recognized from the prophecies as who he is, which is the king under the mountain. And the master, there's not a mayor, he's called the master of Lake Town, is kind of like, I don't know if I want to help you sort of thing, because I like being in control here.
But you're kind of
And-
cool, though.
But you're kind of cool, so people like you, so I can't hurt you.
I can't just kill you. But
I can't, right. And Bard leads the charge to support Thorin. Bard is not spied on like he is in the movie. Bard is not the barrel grabber like he is in the movie, but that's neither here nor there. Bard is, I forget what he does in the film, or in the book, but he's just one of the Lake Town people.
He's
And
kind of
people,
known as a conspiracy theorist, I think,
And
in
people-
the
but-
book.
but people
he's kind of a
respect
whack.
him.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he's a little weird too.
Yeah. And then they help the dwarves get to Erebor. They give them some ponies and some provisions, and then off they go. Okay. Well, you've seen the movie, and you know that's not what happens. Oh, and the master of the town is also not an idiot like he is in the book or in the movie. In the book, he's kind of mischievous. He's kind of is a slug, but he's not an idiot. And he's very tactful and kind of maniacal and just finds his way into where he needs to go.
But he's a goofy, mean guy, and I kind of need to know that. So when he dies, it's expected, and I'm happy.
For the movie purposes, you mean?
Does he die in the
I
movie?
appreciate
does.
you.
Smaug falls on him.
Look,
He's
I
dying in the
really
book, right?
appreciate.
No.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
I really appreciate you bringing a moron's perspective into this.
That's so mean.
But that is like your average moviegoer.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, that's not your average moviegoer.
That's what they
That's who
expect
the
of-
studio thinks is your average moviegoer, and that's the kind of opinions that they are looking to advertise to
Jack,
when
you
they
become
screw
the
things
very
up
thing
like
you
The
swore
Hobbit.
to destroy.
It's okay. I make a lot of money.
So the movie completely demolishes that. They spy on Bard. The master's a complete moron. The Alfred guy that they add into the movie.
Oh, my favorite character. Oh God. I like.
Please tell me you're playing devil's
I
advocate.
like when he makes the gold boobies.
What? What are you even talking
No,
about?
that's the thing. He does that.
He tries to steal a bunch of money. and
Which
he
movie is this?
The third one.
Oh
I
yeah,
haven't seen. I've never seen that one.
We
I
should
even
go.
thought
trip.
about that scene.
He.
He
What
stuffed
does
some
he do
gold.
now?
He's trying to avoid getting drafted into this new
So he dresses
army.
up as a woman to because women and children hide. So he goes to hide with women and children. But since he dresses up as a woman, he takes a bunch of the town money and he puts it in his breasts so he can jingle jangles all of his way to go.
Again,
No.
wait.
I
Please
forgot
tell me
about
that
that.
was not in the book.
No, he's not even a character in the book.
Alfred's not even a character in the
Alfred
book.
doesn't exist in
Now-
the book.
They add. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they add more Alfred stuff in the extended edition of that movie
Oh my god.
to make it even better.
That's like more cowbell. No, don't do it.
More cowbell.
Don't do it. So,
It's a real guy.
yeah. So the entirety of Lake Town is just a mess, and they portray the Black Arrow as like this giant javelin spear that has to be shot from this special dwarven tool called a wind lance. That's not a thing. Never is a thing. Never even hinted at, because in the book, Bard does kill the dragon with a black arrow that's shot from a bow. And the black arrow, its significance is you've never failed me and I've never lost you. So like there's this superstition surrounding the black arrow for Bard.
He just didn't grab it.
He's never used it, right? I never lost you.
Unless he was just like, I see a little hole in that dragon.
Oh, I forgot about this. Great. Another Pandora's box. So the thrush in the moon letters and the map, and they do that in the movie where they say, look for where the thrush knocks at the end of Doran's Day and you'll find the keyhole. First off, they don't know when Doran's Day is in the book, so they added that in the movie.
They got pretty lucky though.
Right? The thrush.
It's like right now.
It happened to be. Yeah, but I can believe that, like I can suspend that belief. To just be fed it on a platter in the movie.
I mean, by this point,
See, I agree with you. See, but in a better movie, it wouldn't be a problem. But in a worse thing, it's like you don't deserve to have this. Like you hate this
Yeah.
one thing. It's more of a we're adding this to the list of things that make us hate you.
But no, the overall Dane Iron Fist or Ironfoot, the dwarf cousin of Thorin that comes to help. What the is that about?
Is that a guy from the-
guy.
You
is
don't
that
even
a guy
s-
from the book? Because
No,
that sounds like
sorry.
somebody made up a name for
Let
the
me
Hobbit.
let
The
me
guy in
rephrase.
the pig?
Yes.
Oh,
The
it
pig's
sounds like a
added. The
fan-generated
pig is
name,
added.
though.
No. Dane Ironfoot
real.
is real.
Okay.
But in the movie, I made a note of it. How many helmeted armored orcs can you headbutt with no helmet and be alive? He headbutts
One.
like
With that rough Scottish accent, you can do whatever you want.
oh my
You can do
lord.
whatever you want.
And the other problem I have too is they show him in the battle. They make you think he's going to be this big important character, and you don't see him again. It's kind of like Beorn being hella dropped from the Eagles. He's like, oh, he's in battle, and then we never see him.
He's always angry.
He's used for the headbutting, and the
That's
other
a
dude's
secret.
used for the smash.
That's his secret.
That's his secret. He's always angry. My final 2 points on The Hobbit are actually good ones. These are things that the film did well. I'm glad I don't like how they got there, but I'm glad that they kept some very important dialogue between Thorin and Bilbo at the end when he's dying. I was like, thank God they didn't destroy that too bad. The final part, and it sounds funny to say it like this because it's kind of it's a cryptic meaning. It's got an ambiguous thing. And I'll read it verbatim. The ending of the movie was legit the best part of almost all 3 films. And I'm not saying I'm glad it's over. I did like how they tied at the end, if you'll remember in the film, it fades to modern day Bilbo, like it fades to Bilbo, old Bilbo.
It just goes straight
Ian
to
Holmes.
Ian
Bilbo?
Holmes.
Really? They brought him back.
They do at the end.
Awesome. Okay, they didn't just old age Martin Freeman.
Correct. It
Wow,
comes back to
okay.
Ian Holm, and he's got the ring in hand. Because at the end of the film, Martin Freeman Bilbo,
That's Ian Holm as Bilbo in the Lord of the Rings films.
I'm aware.
and he was
I don't know.
Thanks, Hollywood.
I'm aware.
Thanks, Hollywood.
Don't you?
Did you know? Did you know
Dare
that?
call me Hollywood?
Did you know that Ian Holm was the voice of Frodo in the radio show for Lord of the Rings?
Really? No, I didn't.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So it shows Martin Freeman Bilbo come home. His stuff's being sold at auction because everyone thinks he's dead. He comes in, his house is a wreck. He puts a picture back up on the wall, and in his hand he's holding the ring, staring at it. And then it fades to Ian Holm Bilbo looking at the ring, and that's when the knock on the door comes, which starts the Fellowship of the Ring.
Is the Gandalf knocking on the door?
Yes, and he says, "And what about very old friends?" And you see his reaction.
Yeah.
So I do like that crossover. That I thought was tastefully done.
See, but that is the most prequely thing that it should do. That
Yes,
should have been.
They
the
could have
extent
gotten
of it.
rid of the beginning with Bilbo and
Yes.
Frodo. The other part too that ruins the Fellowship of the Ring is when you hear the knocks on the door in the Fellowship of the Ring. You hear the knocks on the door, and Bilbo calls for Frodo, and then he says, Balderdash, where is that boy? Or Sticklebats. He says, Sticklebats, where is that boy? In the opening of the Hobbit movies, Bilbo knows where Frodo goes. And it's like, why would you do that?
Right.
Why?
Right.
Forgot about that.
Well,
yeah,
there's
it does.
there's a lot of stuff happening in the movies. So you just got to get it going.
You do.
Yeah.
So don't do it. Again, you can stay. Your ideas must leave.
Ideas must live. Anything else to say on the Hobbits? I think
They suck.
we ended with that last scene.
What-
The only good part.
So, well, what I've gathered from this conversation is maybe not that they suck, but that they're a very mixed bag.
No, they suck.
I think they're an insult.
Wow. Oh, okay. So, but
Kind of like what he said. The film kind of insults your time.
maybe you just did a good job of highlighting the redeemable aspects.
Well, thank you. Obviously they stuck somewhat to the original writing because they go from Hobbiton to the Lonely Mountain. Smaug dies. But all the added stuff. It's just. Oh, we didn't even talk about the earthworms.
I don't even remember the earthworms. What
It's
movie
where
is
the
that
bad
in?
guys come out of the tunnel in the last one.
That's
Oh.
all they're for. They burrow, boom, they're there, and it's like,
I think throughout all the movies, the main issue is that it's trying too hard to be Lord of the Rings. The
And
studio
I think that's
wants
a
it
studio thing,
right,
yeah.
and it wants it too much to be an epic, which The Hobbit was never written as an epic. Cool. So conclusion of The Hobbits. Very nice. Thank you, everyone.
Just like when I'm like, let's wrap this up, Blaine literally says the word conclusion. Just the way
He's pretty good.
He's
at
to the
it.
point. It works.
You can do whatever you want. You can edit it. Do whatever you want.
As a listener,
Okay. Okay.
It's
You're
never
holding me up.
bothered
I'm
me.
trying to conclude here.
I'm all for collaborative. So if it's working, it's working. Just to me being here, I don't know. If it works, it works though. And that's
Would you
fine.
like to conclude us?
No, definitely not.
I'll say this going out. The movies suck. The 1977 film actually is worth watching. Read the book.
You have it here. Thank you, everyone.
What? Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
I'd have. It's worth it.
Comment. We'll have a discourse. We respond to comments.
He might wind up on the show. Who knows?
Say something
Yeah.
political.
We can have another guest.
Climb. Where are you? Where are you?
Canada.
Will fly you in.
Why me? Why do I have to pay for it? Okay, I'm sorry.
Bye. Say bye.
Bye.
Bye. Say bye.
Goodbye.